Most people spend their entire lives chasing money without ever realizing that the people who actually have it are playing a completely different game. Think about your own life for a second. You wake up, you go to work, you trade hours for a paycheck, and at the end of the month, that money disappears into rent, food, bills, maybe a little entertainment if there's anything left. Then the cycle resets, week after week, year after year. It feels normal. It feels like this is just how life works. But here's the uncomfortable part. The people at the top, the ones who seem financially free, the ones who don't worry about bills, the ones who control companies, assets, and entire industries, they're not doing what you're doing. They're not trading their time for money in the same way. In fact, most of them stopped doing that a long time ago. And once you really understand that, it changes how you see everything. Because the truth is, rich people don't work for money. Money works for them. Now, before that sounds like some cliché motivational quote, slow down and really think about what it means in practical terms. When you work a job, your income is directly tied to your time. If you don't show up, you don't get paid. If you get sick, your income stops. If your company decides to replace you, your entire financial stability can disappear overnight. Your effort is valuable, but it's also limited. There are only so many hours in a day, and no matter how hard you work, you can't multiply your time. This is where most people get stuck. They try to earn more by working more. Overtime, side jobs, hustle culture. And for a while, it feels like progress. The paycheck gets slightly bigger, life improves a little, but the structure doesn't change. You're still inside the same system, just running faster on the same treadmill. Now compare that to how wealthy individuals approach money. They focus on ownership. Ownership of assets. Ownership of systems. Ownership of things that continue to generate income whether they are actively working or not. This could be businesses, real estate, stocks, intellectual property, or even digital systems that run automatically. The key difference is that these things produce income independently of time. Once they're set up, they keep working in the background. So instead of asking, how can I earn more money this month, they ask a completely different question. What can I own that will keep paying me over time? That shift alone changes everything. Because when you rely only on earned income, you're always starting from zero every month. But when you have income-producing assets, you're building something that compounds, it grows, it stacks, it becomes harder to lose. And here's the part most people don't realize. The system is designed in a way that encourages you to stay focused on earning, not owning. From a young age, you're taught to study hard, get good grades, find a stable job, and work your way up. Nobody really explains how money actually works beyond that. Nobody sits you down and says, here's how wealth is created, here's how assets generate income, here's how you stop trading time for money. Instead, you're trained to become reliable, predictable, employable. And again, there's nothing wrong with having a job. It provides stability, it pays the bills. But the problem is when it becomes your only strategy. Because if your entire financial life depends on your ability to work, then your freedom is always limited. Think about it like this. If tomorrow you decided to stop working completely, how long could you survive without income? A few weeks, a few months if you're careful? For most people, that number is uncomfortably small. Now imagine the opposite scenario. Imagine having assets that generate income every month, regardless of whether you're working or not. That changes your relationship with time. It changes your decisions. It gives you options. And that's what wealth really is. Not just money, but control over your time and choices. But here's where it gets even deeper. This isn't just about money, it's psychological. When you're used to working for money, you start to measure your worth by your effort. You believe that more effort should equal more reward. So when you see someone making money without working in the same way, it feels unfair or confusing. You might think they're lucky, or that they had some advantage, or that it's not realistic for you. But what's actually happening is that they're operating under a different model. They're not focused on effort alone, they're focused on leverage. Leverage means using something, money, systems, people, or technology, to multiply your output without multiplying your effort. For example, if you work a job, your effort creates value for one company. But if you own a business, your systems and employees create value at scale. If you invest in assets, your money starts generating more money. If you create something once that can be sold repeatedly, like digital content or a product, your effort continues to pay off long after the initial work is done. This is how wealth grows quietly in the background, while most people are still focused on the next paycheck. And once you start seeing this, it becomes hard to ignore. You begin to notice how much of your life is built around earning just enough to sustain your current lifestyle. You notice how expenses grow as income grows, keeping you in the same position. You notice how easy it is to get comfortable and stop questioning the system. Comfort is one of the biggest traps. When life is just stable enough, you don't feel the urgency to change anything. You tell yourself you'll think about investing later, you'll start something on the side when you have more time, you'll figure it out eventually. But time passes quickly, and the longer you stay in that cycle, the harder it becomes to step out of it. This doesn't mean you need to quit your job tomorrow or take extreme risks. That's not the point. The point is awareness. Understanding that there are two paths, one where you work for money and one where money works for you. Most people stay on the first path because it's familiar, it's structured, it feels safe, but it also has a ceiling. The second path is less obvious. It requires learning new skills, thinking differently, and sometimes being uncomfortable in the short term. But it's the only path that leads to real financial independence. And here's something important. This shift doesn't happen overnight. The people who are financially free today didn't wake up one morning and suddenly have everything figured out. They started small. They made mistakes. They learned how money actually flows. They built assets gradually over time. At first, the income from those assets might be small, almost insignificant. But over time, it compounds. One stream becomes two, two become three, and eventually those streams start to replace the need for active income. That's when the real shift happens, not when you make more money, but when you no longer depend entirely on working for it. And maybe the most important part of all this is how it changes your mindset. Instead of asking, how much can I earn this year, you start asking, what can I build that will still be paying me 5 years from now? Instead of focusing only on effort, you focus on direction. Instead of chasing money, you start creating systems that attract it. That's a completely different way of living. And once you see it clearly, it's hard to go back to thinking the old way. Because deep down, you realize something most people never fully accept. It's not that you're working too little. It's that you've been taught to work in a way that will never truly make you free. And the system doesn't need you to be rich. It needs you to keep working, keep spending, and keep the cycle going. But the moment you start shifting from earning to owning, from effort to leverage, from short-term income to long-term assets, you step outside of that cycle, even if it's just a little at first. And that's where everything begins to change. Because in the end, the goal isn't just to make money, it's to reach a point where your life is no longer controlled by the need to make it.